The bells had once been the heartbeat of the city, calling people to prayer, marking births, weddings, and harvests. But now their echo rolled through the empty streets like a dying breath. In the spring of 1349, London was not a city anymore. It was a tomb disguised as civilization. Smoke rose in slow spirals from chimneys where no one lived to see it. The smell of decay clung to everything: the wood of doors, the cloth of cloaks, even the hair of the living who dared to step outside. Every corner of the city whispered of death: carts creaking under the weight of corpses, doors nailed shut with chalk crosses smeared across them, rats scurrying freely as if they had inherited the world. Priests no longer came to anoint the dying. The few who survived had buried too many to still believe in mercy. The air trembled with the echo of the bells tolling endlessly until, one morning, even they fell silent. The ropes frayed, the towers cracked, and silence spread like the plague itself. People began to count the hours, not by the sun, but by the distance between their heartbeats. Markets once filled with the cries of merchants now echoed with the faint scuttle of vermin. Mothers wept over empty cradles. Fathers burned their homes to drive out invisible demons. The cries of "Bring out your dead" became the city's new anthem, a grim chorus carried on by men who no longer looked like men, their faces hidden behind rags soaked in vinegar. The river stank of ash and blood, carrying the dead downstream like forgotten prayers. Children drew circles in the dust, pretending their families would wake up tomorrow. Even time seemed to stop, as if God himself had turned his face away. The last bell that rang was said to have cracked in two before falling silent, and when it did, the people understood. The city had stopped breathing. All that remained was the heavy stillness of fear, thick enough to choke on. The once living streets turned into corridors of ghosts, and yet, in that stillness, the memory of the bells lingered, a sound that refused to die, echoing not from the towers, but from the hearts of those who remembered what life had once been. When the bells stopped ringing, the city began to whisper. It wasn't the sound of voices at first. It was the creak of doors opening just enough to glimpse the street, the rustle of fabric as someone dared to move again, the trembling breath of survivors who could no longer tell whether they were blessed or cursed. Fear had become the city's only law. Lovers no longer touched. Friends passed each other in the fog without a word. Even the cats walked quietly, their paws pressing into the dust like signatures of ghosts. In the markets, scavengers searched for food among the ashes of stalls that once overflowed with spice and grain. The air, thick with rot and smoke, carried the faint scent of roses left by desperate mothers beside their children's graves. The city square, once a sea of life, was now a field of names. Every morning, a man stood alone, reading them aloud, his voice trembling but steady, as if by speaking them he could keep their souls from vanishing. Some found strange comfort in the silence. Others went mad trying to fill it. Families painted red crosses on their doors and prayed for miracles that never came. The rich had fled, leaving behind empty manors and servants who buried their masters with bare hands. Yet, amid all the horror, humanity flickered stubbornly. A widow shared her last crust of bread with a child who wasn't hers. A sick priest whispered blessings through a crack in the door to strangers he would never see. At night, Faint songs drifted through the alleys, hymns of hope from unseen voices, trembling yet unbroken. The people sang, not because they believed they would live, but because they refused to die in silence. Then, one morning, after endless months of stillness, a sound cut through the air, a single bell ringing. No one knew who pulled the rope, or from which church it came. It rang only once, but it was enough. The note lingered, trembling across rooftops, through windows, into hearts starved for meaning. People looked up from their darkness. They wept, not out of grief, but memory, because that sound reminded them of what it meant to be human. And though the plague would fade, though centuries would pass, that moment would remain eternal. For even in the city of the dead, one bell had dared to ring, and in its echo, life whispered back,